All right, let's get more now on court proceedings this morning. Our reporter Chriselda Lewis is standing by with more. Chriselda, good afternoon to you. Just take us through it. Two of the big sort of arguments that we heard today, the issue of the 4 shots being fired. The justices kept asking why 4 shots, and then the other issue of remorse. Did Pistorius really show remorse?
Well, that's right, Natasha. No surprise there from the state to really harp on the issue of remorse, indicating that Oscar Pistorius has never shown remorse for pulling the trigger, and basically saying that Judge Thokozile Masipa, the trial judge, had basically elevated and looked at Oscar Pistorius's personal circumstances over anything else, and that's where the court had misdirected itself. The issue of remorse we certainly expected to come from the state, in that it wanted to harp on the fact that Oscar Pistorius has not shown remorse since he shot and killed his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp. But certainly one of the pertinent issues also, we saw a number of the justices there taking the defense advocate Barry Roux on there, when basically we saw Barry Roux really trying to show this court and say that the court needs to take into account the circumstances that led to Oscar Pistorius pulling the 4 shots through the small bathroom door. You heard when some of the justices said, but why would somebody fire 4 shots? There was no warning shot from Oscar Pistorius, and that clearly there might have been an intention to kill whoever was behind the door. So Barry Roux basically saying that this court needs to take into account the circumstances that led to that, in that Oscar Pistorius didn't just walk towards the bathroom door and start firing. In actual fact, he did shout for whoever was behind the door at the time, before he had realized that it was Reva Steenkamp, for that person to get out. So what we really did see here, no surprises, I think, on both the part of the state and the defense. We expected, the state also to put a sharp focus as well on the fact that Oscar Pistorius was cognizant of the dangerous weapon and ammunition that he had used when he was firing through the bathroom door. And Barry Roux responding to that and saying that this court needs to take into account that the person that they're dealing with here is somebody who in the early hours of the morning was vulnerable. The circumstances in which he was in were very difficult, and this is not somebody who had the confidence, who believed he had the confidence to defend himself. So really, the defense in this instance really wanting to point out that they do not believe that the state has a case to stand on when it wants to appeal the 6-year sentence, and the state basically saying, on the other hand, that they believe that, as we've heard throughout the proceedings, that the 6-year sentence that was meted out to Oscar Pistorius was shockingly lenient.
And then also, Chriselda, interesting, I know you mentioned Judge Masipa, but interesting to hear Roux in his argument defending Judge Masipa and the sentence that she handed down, saying that she sort of had a juggling act to have to deal with all sorts of circumstances in delivering her sentence, including a very strong public perception of the case.
Well, that was one of the major things you'd recall, Natasha, since the very start of this matter. Public perception, and I think that's one of the reasons why the National Prosecuting Authority had decided to petition the Supreme Court of Appeal, because public perception around this matter, you would know that within the South African atmosphere, you would get sentiment that is shared that there isn't justice for all people in society, and that justice is only meted out to certain individuals. If you have money, if you have celebrity status. Those were some of the issues that had been the driving force and things that we've seen throughout this case. So not surprising there that we saw Barry Roux also mention that. But I think part of the reason for him to do that was that he was really trying to point out to this court that Judge Thokozile Masipa was fair when she meted out that sentence against Oscar Pistorius, saying that she had taken into account the circumstances that led to him firing those shots. As I earlier indicated, much of the scrutiny that was put towards the defense here was that to explain why Oscar Pistorius had fired those 4 shots and why perhaps he could not have fired a warning shot, for example. So by no surprise, we're seeing Barry Roux also defend Judge Thokozile Masipa's decision, in that it believes that she took into account the circumstances that led to before him pulling those 4 shots when he then realized that he had shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp. Just on the issue of remorse, just before we wrap up there, Natasha, as well, when we saw the defense move on its first issue that Oscar Pistorius did not show remorse, we saw the defense also indicate that Oscar Pistorius had in fact tried to reach out to the Steenkamp family, and at that time they did not want to have an audience with Oscar Pistorius, I guess because of the pain that they were feeling at this time. And I think I must also point out, as they left this court here this afternoon, I think the general sentiment from the Steenkamp family, as they indicated this morning when I conducted an interview with them, was that they're hoping that there will be justice this time around, because they do feel that Oscar Pistorius should spend more time behind bars, and they feel that the sentence that was meted out to him certainly does not fit the crime that was committed.
All right, Chriselda, thanks so much for that. Our Chriselda Lewis live from the Supreme Court of Appeal, where judgment has been reserved.